What's up, guys? Someone told me that it's a good idea to tell people to like and subscribe. Like, that's supposed to make a difference. So I probably should do the professional thing and tell people to like and subscribe more often on the intros and the outros. So let's try to do that and raise our professional rank. But in terms of professional, I'm going to bring in my best friends. What's up, Gov? What's up, Donnie? How we doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right.
Oh yeah, doing good. Solid week right now.
You were just about to break some Packers news, I think, for us, Donnie. What do you
Yeah.
have?
Amari Rogers got released this afternoon. So
That's
another
interesting
receiver
given
building
how.
for the Packers. Yeah.
Now, I do know Odell had a short list and it had the Packers on it. If they were to. Now, do you think he would be willing to sign with that team before or after the outcome of Thursday Night Football?
I don't think that he's going to really. I don't think the Packers really have much of a shot. I guess the Rams have been taken off his short list. So that is.
I'd imagine. I would think it's down to the Cowboys. If I was him, I'd go to the Ravens. But that's just me, because then you're going to get Andrews back, and somehow they keep winning with all these injuries. I would go to the Ravens. You got Deshaun Jackson. You have Bateman maybe coming back. You have Andrews definitely coming back. I mean, they say Andrews might be ready this week. I would go to the Ravens.
The short list as of right now is Cowboys, Bills, Chiefs, Giants, and Niners. I think out of those teams, I'd be down to two right now, personally, between the Chiefs and the Niners. And the Niners I would just avoid because of all the talent, so that leaves the Chiefs. I think that's where he fits best.
I like Rodgers. I think Rodgers will get another chance or more. Gov, what is your initial gut reaction? Like, what's your gut say about this? Is this a move to open up a Will Fuller and Odell, or is this just like, you know what, this guy just wasn't working out, well for us?
I mean, it's a practice squad guy. I just think it wasn't working out for him. He was never gonna it was never a guy. Like, I'm trying to look up right now because I'm pretty sure this guy is listed at tight end. Pretty sure this guy's listed at tight end on DraftKings, and he's like the guy playing behind Degora and Tunyon and Mercedes.
No,
Lewis.
Amari Rogers is 5'9".
No, I know who it is, but I'm like, it's a practice squad wide receiver at best. It was a special team guy. It wasn't a guy who was like, even last week without Dubs and with all of the injuries they have, I'm pretty sure he didn't see the field. So that's why they cut him. I don't think this is some overarching move to sign Odell, in my mind.
Well,
I think it's just
I don't know, but
it's a little weird that it happens now. Like, I don't see how
third round
it's definitely not a guy that's saving you salary.
Right. It's a third round pick from 2021.
Right. So it's a guy who you're not going to pick up anything on. You're cutting him instead of letting him be the sixth wide receiver on your team another year. Like, I guess you're doing that out of goodness to him. Maybe he can sign with another team or pick up on a practice squad instead of just having him be the not a used receiver in Green Bay. So, like, maybe it's good for him, but I don't see it being some big overarching thing. Go on, Logan.
I would love the Lions to go like that. Who do you want to help? I mean, I view this guy more as a Tony type addition to a good team. I mean, I'm not saying the Lions are a good team. I mean, just selfishly, they're my favorite team. So of course, I would want that kind of talent on my team. I still think he has talent. I just think Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, I'll say it, used him wrong. Aaron Rodgers never liked the small guy. So I don't put that on Aaron Rodgers either. It's just the general manager and the coaching staff. Like, you have to put quarterbacks and wide receivers together. They have to pair. We always talk about how Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford ate breakfast together, and that narrative gets over talked about. But there is some truth to that, like how that connection forms. And for whatever reason, he's just never liked that small guy. He likes those long, lengthy Alan Lazard, Christian Watson. So I just feel like maybe Gov's right that he's just not going to work on. He's just a practice squad guy, but it also just never fit Rodgers' skill set.
I'm just looking at his stats throughout his career right now. Throughout his career, he had only 8 catches, 16 targets, and 95 yards. And that's just not much. And he's also in 2 seasons as a wide receiver, 7 fumbles, and he has 5 fumbles this year. He has more fumbles than catches.
626 career return yards. So, like, he's a special teams guy. That's what he was probably drafted to be. He's a special teams guy.
I don't know about you guys, but my computer decided it needed to do a refresh right in the middle of the stream, which is great. So I missed that right when you were telling me his stats done. So
yeah.
So I'm not sure if we want to pick the stream, but
yeah, I was just saying he has 8 career catches, I think it was, on like 16 targets and 5 fumbles. So he's fumbled 5 times, or no, 4 career catches, sorry. And he's fumbled 5 times.
He also, and I chimed in, he has 626 career return yards. So he's basically a return specialist.
But he can't hold on to the football.
Exactly. So, yeah, small guy, can't hold on to the football, and basically is being used as a returner because he's probably not a great route runner. Now, usually when small guys are used and used well in the game, it's because they're good route runners. They're crisp. It's like the Edelman, it's the Welker, it's the Beasley. It's the guy who can make that quick move and run that small short route real easily. Looks like Amari Rodgers isn't able to do that and isn't able to catch and keep the ball doing that. If you're not going to be the possession guy as the small receiver, like, you have to be like, the only other small receivers I've seen be amazing are guys like Steve Smith. And those guys will literally jump over a dude who's 6'4".
Yeah, or Tyreek Hill, I guess you could say, but he's still a decent route runner.
He's so fat. Yeah, and he's a really good route runner, and he's so fat. But, like, you have to have something amazing going on in your game to be a sub 6 foot wide receiver. And you really always have had. Like, something about in the open field. Otherwise you're like like the best case scenario is you're Devin Hester.
I think Logan's having internet issues right now.
Yep. We can take it from here while he figures this out, as long as we stay on. But I'm not big. Now, I'll say this. I'm not huge on Odell. I don't think he helps any team right now.
I like Odell. There's got to be value for him.
Maybe. I think he's washed.
I mean, we saw him last year with the Rams. He had a good year there, like half year, I know.
I was about to say, the half a year I saw with the Rams is basically what I'm basing this on.
Right. Like,
I'm throwing out the stuff with Cleveland, but I have to try to do that with a bias because being a being in a family with my dad who's a Browns fan, he's already under the impression that was 100% Odell and not – he was under the impression that was 100% Odell and not Baker. But he's also the guy who's like, I'm so glad we got rid of Baker this year. So, like, maybe, but I don't know. I got to see it with Odell. Odell is at the point where he's had the benefit of the doubt. He's played well. Now I got to see him prove it to me again.
You're still sounding not great, Logan.
I think we're just saw. What's that, Donnie?
You still weren't sounding great for a second, but I think you're coming through now.
Yep.
Yeah, I tried to refresh everything, and hopefully that works. We're also getting some bad weather, so that might be why. I'm not sure because my internet should be solid.
Yep, you sound fine now, so hopefully we can get through the rest of the show.
Let me know if I. Breaking up because we can always.
Yeah, you are breaking up again, so I don't know. If we want to pick this up another time, we can.
Gov, if you can stream DraftKings, that would be great. Because what's happening is we're having some bad weather in my area, and I think
You
that's
can't
what's
have multiple
causing.
windows open. I get it.
Yeah, I think it's just causing my. So I'll try to reset after the stream, but then hopefully we can go from there. But what were some takeaways, Donnie, that you saw that you thought were for sure going to happen going into the playoffs, and maybe some fluky things? So like some things that you thought were lucky, or some things that you thought were okay, this is for real.
For the NFL this right now?
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing is we are overreacting to, I think, some of the, like, I don't know how the Bills' offense is going to look at the end of the year. I get it's a high-scoring offense and all that, and yes, Josh Allen's proven he can do it in the winter and stuff, but his body's starting to, he's getting a little sore and everything. I know he looked fine. I don't know if they can keep this up for a full season length with the way Josh Allen's playing. They need to figure out how to change his offense up to keep him preserved for a little bit.
Oh, that's why. Okay, they had to get rid of a dude to bring back Randall Cobb from IR.
Okay. See, I knew there was a reason, so I'm glad.
That's why. Yeah, they designate. I just looking through. It's like they're designating Randall Cobb to come back from IR, so they have to cut someone or send him down to the practice squad. So it's going to be Amari Rodgers.
So yeah, it just looks like we're getting some like really cold, like blustery weather. So I think I'm good now. So I'm gonna try to present again, and hopefully it holds through. If not, I'll just not present. But we'll try it again.
I'm about to say, like, I don't think we need to present. Just keep talking. We're good. We can always pull up the lineups on Friday during the show and go over them real quick.
It's true. So here's what happened, though. I played John Wolford under the idea that he could get me 12 or 13 points, and
I did the same thing.
He got the luckiest 10 points you can imagine. I think he scored it within 30 seconds. And one of the biggest talking points, I guess, that we had before the show was like sometimes you have to embrace the luck and the good play nature of something. Like sometimes it can be a good play and bad things happen, injury, what have you. And then sometimes we just get very lucky. And I think it's understanding the combination of the two things exist. So why don't you tell people like your initial thoughts on the play while I turn on some lights and make this look more presentable, since we are going to just go with the 3-panel screen.
I was about to say, give me the play again, because I admit I have NBA news and
John
all
Wolford.
that stuff. Okay, yeah.
You got to be John Wolford. It could be John Wolford. It could be Colt McCoy. Like,
well, no, like I was optimals were giving me John Wolford early that Sunday morning. Like he looked like a good play, and we even talked on stream that we liked, like, if it came down to it, I preferred Colt McCoy at the same price range in that game. And that did look pretty solid, to be honest. I think that was the better play. I should have just pivoted all to Colt McCoy. But in hindsight, the three quarterbacks that we all thought and were highly owned because they were the best three plays were the top three quarterbacks to have on the slate that day. Like, you really needed one of two of Mahomes, Fields, and it really needed to be one of Fields or Mahomes. So,
yeah,
like, Wolford, the play is not bad, but we were doing it to try to, like, capture everything by not playing the top three guys, and the top three guys were the top three guys.
Is this something we're going to start expecting of Fields? Like, it's gonna stop real soon, right?
I don't know. They've switched his offense the last few weeks. They're playing a lot more plays, and they're running it more like rookie year Lamar, rookie year RG3, rookie year Kaepernick, where it's like, okay, we're just going to simplify everything down to we're going to run you 10 times and then let you make the throws you can. And that has simplified the offense to use his skill set perfectly. So I don't know. The fact that they didn't start the year doing this and they're doing it partway through, it might last to the end of the season. Whereas the other guys
That's what I was
basically
thinking
had
as
a
well.
good. That's it. Basically, the other guys started their rookie year, and then by week 12, there was enough tape to figure it out.
Well,
I don't know if you're going to have enough tape on this offense till like week 16.
let's not forget with Lamar, he didn't start till what, week 4, I think it was, when they finally benched Flacco, and it lasted for a while. It got him to the playoffs, and then by the playoffs, it got ruined.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You get about 10 to 12 weeks.
Right.
Like I remember this with RG3 in Washington. He looked really, really good the first like 10 weeks. Then he looked kind of the last 6, and then he gets hurt in that last game.
Right. And then there was the Kaepernick one where they had Alex Smith for a while, and what was it, like week 12 when Kaepernick took over officially or something, and then they got to the Super Bowl with it.
Yeah.
But,
really, the best case scenarios would probably be stuff like RG3 and Cam, where they started week 1. They looked like fantasy monsters the first half of the year, but then they were sort of capped the second half of the year. You might get fantasy monster Fields for the next couple of games. I don't know if he's putting up 40 again.
Right.
Especially with them putting Khalil Herbert on IR, so it's just him and Montgomery. That could lower some explosiveness in their run game.
Yeah. See, we're back, by the way. I got DK Live up so these people can see the screen. It was just the wires got cold. It's starting to get cold in the Midwest, so forgive me, but we should be good now. But Donnie, I think that's the point, though. I think, like you said, is it coming to an end? I think the 40 to 50 point upside, like he got 54 the first week, right? When everyone was on him and he was underpriced, he was like $5K, right? But then
he comes back and gets 43 the next week when he's at 65. Now he'll be 7K and probably get the 30-point game.
But even still, like I don't think much changes other than the opponent, which is obviously going to change some. It's almost like the changing of seasons. Like I just mentioned, how it's getting colder in the Midwest. I think defensive schemes are going to change. But I do think it's real what they are doing with him. And that is his skill set, even going back to Ohio State. He's got a cannon arm, but he's inaccurate, a lot like Lamar Jackson. So if you say, could he be a Lamar Jackson type quarterback the rest of his career? Yes, I do think he could be.
I do think that caps his ceiling, though, career-wise.
Right.
Like I'm under the impression that Lamar Jackson is basically at his best, and we know what he gets, and he doesn't get you anywhere in the playoffs.
I would say this. As of right now, and obviously things can change, I think you can win a Super Bowl with Lamar. I can't imagine a team winning a Super Bowl with Justin Fields right now. But I didn't think anyone could win with Lamar for the first couple seasons of him as well. So
see, and I tried to give Lamar the benefit of the doubt because I'm a Panthers fan. So I had to deal with all this with Cam, having him as the running quarterback. Now, I think Cam, one of the reasons you were able to get to the Super Bowl with him as the running quarterback is because you could run this offense in a more physical fashion. So, like, because there's two ways to have the run game. There's the explosive play run game, and then there's the physical pounded in your face run game. And most good run teams, like San Francisco, have a mix of both, where they can get guys in space to make explosive plays, but they can also just jam 9 guys on the line and push you out of the way. So, like, and the way it works with most rushing quarterbacks, when they run, they're trying to get the explosive run. They're trying to get outside of the pocket while looking for a throw and then just hit the open space when it's in man coverage or something. There were plenty of times Cam just ran for 4 yards right up the middle as a quarterback sneak, and that was just one of his 10 rushes.
Speaking of quarterback sneaks, how about that Vikings game? The end where Josh Allen fumbles at the goal line.
Oh, God, the fumbled snap, bailing out the chalk defense on the week.
Oh, my gosh.
Talk about, like, fantasy, like, roller coaster. Because obviously that's the most talked about games, and we can talk about that. But let's do that. Let's do it in a different way than most people are going to talk about it. Did you know Kirk Cousins going into, I think, the third quarter had 0 fantasy points? And I have
that's wrong.
I believe because he threw like 2 interceptions, like almost back to back, correct?
I mean, I remember him throwing a couple of picks, but they were winning that game going into the fourth quarter. He had already thrown like 120 yards to Justin Jefferson.
Maybe not going into the third quarter, but there was a point like late in the second or something.
I could see there was a point early in the first or second quarter where he might but even then, he was having a solid day.
It was after the Justin Jefferson touchdown. I know that. Justin Jefferson had a touchdown, and Kirk had thrown the 2 interceptions, and Logan texted me and said, Kirk looks bad. I'm glad we didn't go with him.
Because, I mean, we could probably timestamp it and figure out when, but it was somewhere around either late second quarter, early third quarter, I believe, where he had 0 fantasy points. I'm not making that up.
Maybe not exactly. Maybe it could have been like 2. I mean, I don't know how exact you were on it, but it was very low.
Yeah, I wish I would, because it's just I'm making that point because that's the event sport of the NFL, and that's like we were talking about before the show, like how people will always say, like, "Oh, I wish I would have played this guy," or "I wish I would have played that guy," but you do realize that there is some luck element to this skilled game. Like Kirk Cousins is a skilled quarterback. He is a professional. But there is some luck involved in him being able to turn it around or him having a bad interception. Sometimes the interceptions go right off the receiver's hands and into the defenders. And that's not the quarterback's fault. I mean, look at Jalen Hurts last night, threw a beautiful pass to Quiz Watkins right there. And then Watkins gets up on his own, fumbles the ball. That's not Hurts' fault, but like Hurts has got to live with that as the leader of the Eagles and be like, you know what, the guy was trying to make a play for me. So in this case, it didn't work out. But next time, given the history, I'm going to trust him. And I think that's what DraftKings comes down to. It's a weekly game, guys, but we have to have trust in our receivers and the quarterbacks and the players that we pick, because not every week everything's going to go our way. Like, here's another example. Van Jefferson had 3 catches, right? One of them came on the John Wolford touchdown with 20 seconds left in that game? So he got 11 points. I think Christian Watson also had 3 to 4 catches, but he had 3 touchdowns, and they were all long, scamping, 60-yard plus touchdowns. But the catches were similar. So, in a vacuum, you could say, oh, yeah, you should play Christian Watson. But that's 20/20 hindsight. What do you guys think about that kind of, that's not a healthy mindset, right?
No.
If anyone thought that Christian Watson could have a game like that, based on what we've seen this year, it's one thing to think he's going to have a good game and another thing to think that he could do that.
Well, I mean, okay, so there is the point of Rodgers does sort of like to eyeball one dude in a game.
Yeah.
He always has. So
which is weird.
You could make the theory that with no Dobbs, if Lazard's not playing well, whoever the next guy up who's catching balls could just end up getting all the work.
I find that very funny, though.
And when Watson caught the first touchdown, Rodgers was just like, all right, I'll throw it to him today.
Because when you eyeball one receiver, usually you'd think that lead to more interceptions, and Rodgers is so against interceptions.
But he just throws balls so accurately, and Rodgers knows where to throw the. That's the thing. Rodgers knows where to throw the ball where it's not going to get intercepted. So it's up to the receiver to know on this route that ball's coming this way. That way the defender can't get to it, but I need to adjust to a ball that's coming to my left instead of over my head or something. It might be something that's slip. It's Rodgers is accurate enough to make that kind of adjustment. That's I remember that's why him and Devontae just always could just give each other a look, and it's all right, Devontae knows he's running a 15-yard out route, And Rodgers is going to put that on the back shoulder away from everyone. And Devontae's just got to get to the sideline and grab it.
But that's why he needs receivers that he has chemistry with.
Right. No, I agree. That's why, like, you would think that would be with Lazard because it's the only one he has chemistry with, especially Watson, who didn't get to do a lot of training camp because of the hamstring. But if that's all he's got is dudes he doesn't have a lot of chemistry with, then it really might be the hot hand. And Watson just happened to have a hot hand at receiver that day. Someone put the stickum on it, and it just caught everything.
It's just weird the way the Packers have run this organization.
No, it is. It's 100% off. But you would technically, if you compare it to every other organization, you would think that because every other organization is run by a billionaire that bought the team and puts a dude in charge to run everything. And Green Bay is not run like that. Green Bay is owned by the city of Green Bay. And so it's basically like the mayor of the city put someone in charge to run the team. And not a billionaire who has all the money to pick the guy he wants.
They're definitely a different entity.
Yeah. So like that, you expect them to be different, but that's Green Bay.
Speaking of different, I would love it, by the way, in the offseason. And since this show has kind of got off the rail and we're talking about all these things, but I do think a show like this does prove valuable because we can kind of give the people a smorgasbord of information. I would love it in the offseason if we did like a would you rather kind of like not even a debate show, but just a conversation on like our key flag plant plays, because I love a guy like Lamar Jackson and you're not as high on him and just like the future of the league, and we could talk about them rookies. I think like having a couple flag plants from each of us and then discussing why we love or why we dislike players or have a bias is interesting, because I don't think enough people talk about biases in daily fantasy and how they contribute. For example, for me, I did hit on the Christian Watson play being a play because of Romeo Dobbs, and Donnie was right. I think everyone that was going to play Christian Watson expected him to have maybe a decent day because of that production. I mean, I think it was Saturday when we did a lineup show when I built that like value chart basically in the lineup. He was in there. So was Lazard and Van Jefferson and guys that didn't get there, but like he was on my radar, but no one would have predicted that. But for me as a player, my bias is I always look at targets. So the reason I didn't play him is because I didn't like his targets coming up. And Donnie spoke about chemistry, and we can use another guy for an example just to get off of the Packers talk. Look at a guy like Terry McLaurin. When he was playing with Carson Wentz, didn't have that good of production. There is some real chemistry. He goes to a guy who he obviously had more chemistry with. I don't know if they referenced like Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, but it's been an upward climb in target percentage since Taylor Heineke took over for Terry McLaurin. And last night, he saw 11 targets. I believe 7 of them came in the first half. He caught 8 passes for 128 yards. I mean, we're talking deep intermediate. I mean, it was locked on. I do think it's a bit different though, Donnie. You mentioned how Aaron Rodgers likes to lock on to receivers. I think Aaron Rodgers locks on to matchups. So maybe that's what we do more going into Saturdays. We pay attention to matchups and we pay attention to height differences. Maybe I don't know. But for me, it's always been targets and always paying for cheap tight ends. Has your bias ever gotten in the way or helped you in some way, Gov?
It usually gets in the way. It's something I have to get over because I'll have a bias, especially in NBA. I'll have a bias with a guy that I've seen and I know he's talented, But I also can look at the numbers and see he's in a slump. His usage is down. Even if he is good, he's just not getting the opportunities. And it's like, I have that bias that he'll just turn that around. But it doesn't always happen. And it happens somewhat in NFL too. I feel like a guy is due for a good game and he should be able to do it. But is he really going to get the volume or the work?
Yeah, well, Donnie, you were mentioning before the show that DraftKings should always be fun. And I think your point was that even if you do it for money, like I like playing DraftKings because I love sports. So it allows me to take an entertainment product like sports and apply it to something where I can make money. To me, that's advantageous because I would rather do that than go to a restaurant. I would rather do that than go to a bar and spend money and get nothing from it. But some people like going to restaurants for the ambiance, and that kind of pays their emotional tab. That they get something out of it. Some people like going to the movies and watching things in surround sound and like having that immersive, 3D kind of big avatar like experience, right? And they get something out of it. For me, daily fantasy sports has always been entertainment based, but then the potential to make money is obviously the secondary pull that makes all the sports interesting, not just to play, but to watch. So that's valuable to me. But like I talked to you before, some people just like to plug in numbers into a calculator and figure it out like they're mathematical geniuses. And so like I think there's a space for both things to exist. Have you found that since you started paying attention to more of our DraftKings experience, have you found that you kind of view the sport differently? Do you view us differently? Like what have you kind of taken away just past the midway point of your first like fantasy?
Well, I mean, I've always watched it from a fantasy perspective because I've always played fantasy football like with friends and stuff. But
Right.
now, now I just pay attention to, I guess, more random names in a sense.
Well, I guess was my larger point though. What have you paid attention to? Because we get a lot of like newer people and especially people that are more into fantasy football like yourself, and they're playing in the buddies leagues. We got a lot of trade questions in the previous weeks, which I love, by the way. But like, what have you learned, I guess, from daily fantasy sports?
I wouldn't go as far to say I've learned it. I enjoy watching football just as it is, but I just like watching a certain player out of nowhere blow up and have an explosive game. Like something that pops into my head now is, wow, that's going to make the slate look different.
Right. Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because, like, Gov, look at a guy like Paris Campbell. We got so caught up in Christian Watson, but like Matt Ryan comes in, and Paris Campbell is now a thing, And so instead of like always saying, "Oh, well, if I would have played," I don't know, just name a guy, Chris Godwin instead of DK Metcalf in Week 5 of 2024. I would have won all the money. Instead of doing things like that, we can look at data, but we can also be football fans and be like, do I think this is real or do I think this is a fluke? So let's do some of that. Do you think Paris Campbell with Matt Ryan, do you think that's a thing? Do you think Matt Ryan might like Paris Campbell more than Pierce? Or do you think this is more of a fluke?
I'm going with the fluke. And I don't want to say that's sort of a bad word because it's probably going to keep happening. But I think Matt Ryan outside of Pittman is just going to pepper random dudes. So like it might be Pierce next week and then Campbell again. It might be Campbell again and then Pierce twice.
And then Deion Jackson the next week.
Well, to come full circle, it's kind of like what Donnie said. Like, can we really expect this from Justin Fields? It's like, well, I think you can project production from Justin Fields as a fantasy producer, because rushing quarterbacks are always going to produce. But if those expectations rise to the point that you expect them to be Jalen Hurts, that's where the issue arises. If you're expecting 45 points, that's where the issue arises. Like look at a guy like Quiz Watkins, who scored, I think, just over 10 fantasy points this week. His role hasn't changed. He is a 7-route, a 9-route guy. He runs, 60-yard wind sprints and catches big bomb passes, similar to Christian Watson. But this week, he hit a medium level. Like, he didn't blow up like Watson did, but he hit a medium level. There's been weeks where he gets 1 point. So when you play a guy like that, you just got to know what kind of play you're getting. It's like when you play, a guy that has got a lot of production, like a Brian Robinson, for example, right? He got 20 touches, but he's probably never going to have like a breakaway run, right? But Hines, who plays for Buffalo, plays in a much higher octane offense, might only get 3 touches that game, but he gets a screen pass that goes for 80 yards. But that's in his skill set. So I think sometimes it's just knowing players' skill sets. Having that expectation, because DraftKings sets an expectation for us, with their pricing, and then we have to either agree to that expectation or disagree to it. And so I don't always think it's about getting things right and wrong. It's about whether we were able to predict the certain outcome for that week. I don't if the Seahawks played the Buccaneers 10 times, who wins that game? If they play a 7-game series like it's NBA, the outcome is probably different, but they don't. The NFL plays a 1-game, weekly experience. That's how they do things. Even in the playoffs, that's how they do things.
Can you do me a favor and go over to running backs? I just want to see what Devin Singletary ended up with. I didn't look at fantasy points at all. I'm just curious.
Yeah, he ended up well. So Jonathan Taylor was number 1. I didn't know that. I knew he outscored Saquon. Jones was number 2. Let's see where Devin ended up. Devin ended up with 16.
About what I would have expected.
I believe at some point he had 27, but then he had like a fumble or something of that nature. I remember, he had a fumble.
See, where I thought his absolute ceiling was 75 yards, 2 touchdowns that game. I don't know why they stopped rushing it with him. I guess maybe because it was such a high-scoring game and stuff. But
yeah, they started to get behind. When you're behind, you're not running it as much.
Well, let's speak to that then. I mean, you can use a different word if you think fluky's too harsh, but do you think Devin Singletary in this offense is a thing if he stays under 6K?
I would say possibly. I really don't know how much I trust that offense to continue doing what they've been doing. I think they're going to have to try to change stuff up as playoffs get closer and closer, and that Devin Singletary is going to take a step up.
I mean, he'll have games here and there, so it depends. If he's cheap enough, he'll be in play. Yeah.
If they want to win a Super Bowl, I think Devin Singletary has to start getting more involved, or James Cook, whichever one.
Well, another thing that people don't mention about the Bills, and we don't talk about it a lot in fantasy even, is often the line matters, I know a fantasy guy was...
You got a question, actually, that I want to pull us up soon.
Of course. Now let's do it now.
Good question, too.
Go ahead, Danny. You can read this one out.
All right. With Khalil Herbert now on IR, do I start Jamal Williams, Monty as running back 2 in the flex, or do I start the other halfback or Boyd?
I think it's...
I definitely start Monty.
Yeah.
Now, I might start Boyd over the other running back?
I would start Boyd until Chase comes back.
Until Chase comes back.
Once
Yeah.
Chase comes back, you have decisions to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're like this week you are starting Monty, then you're probably starting Boyd over Jamal.
But also, if you could elaborate where you are in your season projection, like, are you on the cusp of playoffs, or are you like safe, as a playoff?
I don't see how that has to do at all in season long.
I do think that factors in though, because I do think you'd want to play a safe, like that would tell me to.
You're gonna play. It's season long. You don't have. It's not salary. There's no other dude. Like you're just gonna play your best player. There's no reason to play Jamal Williams over David Montgomery. There's no salary involved. Montgomery's going to get all the work now. You don't play him over Jamal Williams.
8-2, he said.
Okay,
first in the league.
Here's the only pushback, and we'd have to know his settings. Is some tiebreakers and some playoff positioning does get decided on points. So that's
right. So you're going to play the dude who has the best opportunity at points.
Right, but sometimes if he was 2-8, he might have to swing for the fences for like that high upside, Christian Watson type.
Okay, yeah, I kind of agree with that. I don't see how that's you playing Jamal Williams over Monty. He doesn't have a higher upside.
It's not.
Like you're still playing Monty Boyd at that point.
Oh yeah, that's for
like
sure.
That's the thing. Like this isn't a daily thing. He's just asking a season long question, and those are two different things. Because in season long, you don't have a player pool to choose from and have to figure it out with salary and value. If this is what he has, he's playing Monty Boyd.
Yeah,
and really, when Chase is back, he's probably playing Monty Boyd.
Well, I'm just saying,
unless Swift is out completely.
This week for sure, he's playing Monty and Boyd. But I'm saying, like, Donnie is right. Once Chase comes back, the Boyd becomes a decision. He did get back to us. He's 8-2 in his league. So yeah, it's Monty and Boyd. I don't think there's even a discussion about that. Now, I almost think that Boyd is a better play than Higgins while Chase is out.
I would think right now you need to figure out who you're going to grab to replace Herbert.
If you're him or if you're
for him, like he needs to find someone on waivers worthwhile for him.
Well, I don't know if he has Herbert. He probably just has Monty, and it's like with the Herbert new, like, because he was probably thinking with that split backfield that he might start Jamal, and like that is something I think is right. Like if it were still a split backfield with Monty and Herbert, I might play Jamal and Boyd. But now that Monty's getting all the work, you're playing him, and then it's just a question of do you play Jamal Williams or Tyler Boyd? And I'm playing Tyler Boyd as long as Chase is out, like you guys say.
Yeah, I would also say as a Lions fan,
unless they completely rule out Swift. They completely rule out Swift, then I'm playing both running backs.
Correct. But I will tell you, as a Lions fan, Swift is getting healthier and healthier. And it's shown through because he scored 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks.
He got back to us again. He has Chubb, Monty, and Jamal at halfback.
Yeah, so he's clearly starting Chubb. I would start Monty at number 2. And unless Swift is ruled out, I'm probably starting Boyd over Jamal in your flex.
And then start Boyd over Jamal because, like I said, Swift is starting to get more goal line touches now that he's starting to get healthier. And we're about to get Jameson Williams back, which I think is going to open up the underneath for the dump off kind of screen passes, which the Lions do like to run to Swift. So as Swift's health does improve, I do think he'll take over more of that Kamara role. Now Jamal will still have, the goal line touches, and he'll still have that tough yardage kind of back. But I don't think there's even a question between Boyd, Monty, and Chubb as the 3 options you would definitely want to go with.
But if there's a week Swift is out, I would start Jamal.
Right.
Yes. No, that's all you have to wait for.
Definitely keep Jamal, and if you have any other questions, shoot them our way, and we'll get to them. They can That could really be about any football topic or any sport. I mean, we follow basketball as well. I did want to try to get back to DraftKings a little bit, just so we could do a little bit longer.
One more question.
Oh, now he's just asking trade stuff. It's like, like
we'll
if you could get another high level wide receiver to replace Devo, I would do that.
Yeah, see,
but like you already have Diggs. Like you need to get a Diggs kind of receiver if you're doing Devo and Jamal.
I would tell you.
Unfortunately, I don't think the value is there for anyone to make that trade for you. So
yeah, I would tell you it's almost Christmas time. We're talking about packaging.
A lot of leagues don't even have I know a lot of leagues stop letting you trade after like week 10 or week 11. So exactly. You might have a trade deadline too.
I think in our league with the Record Eagle, it's week 10. But that's exactly what I was just going to say. With Christmas coming up, it's kind of similar. We got to be careful between what do we actually need and are we just window dressing ourselves into failure because we want to trade? Like, are you trading because you think it will make your team better, or are you trading because it'd be fun to trade with Bob from the water cooler at work? You know, because I think Gov's right. If you can get a player back that fits your style, whether that be a running back, you know, if you think you need one, or if it improves your team, then fine. But I think some people make these trades just because they want to make a trade, they want to make a splash, you know. On their way to the coffee machine at work, you know, they want to be like, hey, did you see I traded X player for this player? So I do think that happens a lot. Well, I do think daily fantasy sports kind of scratches that itch and makes us better season-long players in that regard, or even best ball players. But to get back to some of this review talk, and we'll wrap up with about an hour, probably maybe even a little bit under. This week, again, I'll keep saying it, diversify your portfolio as much as possible, guys. I stopped playing cash games because I found the prop market to be very, very much just an easier market for me. Don't have any shame. If you find the 100-man tournaments to be your itch, to be your kind of specialty, don't be afraid to be like, hey, this is my specialty. I'm going to do what my specialty is. And, you know, and so like on DraftKings, in the contest, I only made, I think, $1.50, but I made all the money back and basically hit even this week because of some of the prop bets I was able to make, because of the showdown contest I was able to play. So, like, I would just say diversify your portfolio. Any other big takeaways that you had, Gov, from the week that you wanted to start to the people? Advice, tips.
Go ahead, Donnie.
We just had some news break that's kind of interesting to look at in the next coming weeks. Eno Benjamin gets claimed by the Texans, so maybe Pierce loses a couple of carries. Or is it Pierce? I don't know.
Yeah, it is Damian Pierce.
Okay.
I don't know if that happens. Like they really like Pierce. I think it could be a few. Like he could maybe take over what Burkhead's been doing, but it's probably more of a depth move.
Maybe.
Well, we did some forecasting. Who would you guys rather have rest of the season if I told you DraftKings was giving you plus 100 on either one of these guys just to make it even? So it was plus 100. You had to decide, though, today, as of almost 6 o'clock in the evening, Pierce or Walker, who are you taking for Rookie of the Year? If those are the only two options given.
Pierce.
Yeah, give me Pierce.
I don't know. That's a close one for me.
It's Pierce.
I think it's
100% Pierce.
I think it's Pierce because Geno's getting so much attention.
See, but I think it's Pierce based on the statistics, but I do think they'll factor in the team. And that I would give to Walker. Now, Walker had a really awesome spin move, one of the more underutilized moves in the NFL, so you don't see the spin that often. But he had a really good spin fake out that was really impressive.
I got a fun prop thing for you. Who do you think's going to have more rushing yards to end, like not to end the season, but throughout the rest of the season? Justin Fields or Pierce?
Justin Fields.
That's close.
I think it's pretty close. Like, who? If you had to bet money on one of the guys,
Pierce, because Justin Fields has taken a lot of big hits. And I think at one point they might be like, we're out of it. We don't want to get you hurt. At least that's what I would do if I was the coach. I'd be like, look, we don't need to risk you, but maybe they just don't care. And first time head coach, and he's like, I want to make a statement.
Yeah, I would. I'd go with Pierce for the volume and the durability. Same thing. But if Fields stay healthy, he could be right there on him. Like, just from this point on, they both will probably average 70 yards a game at least.
I think Fields is really high on the rushing yard. So I'm going to check. I'm going to pull that up while you guys keep talking about
Well, I mean, he just had 2 140-yard rushing games. That's going to put you up there.
Yeah. No, I think it's like, I want to say I saw him like it's in the top 10.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like the top 10 running backs probably all only have like 500 to 600 yards, and he just busted off 300 in 2 games.
2, 3, 4, 5. So funny enough, he's actually number 6 with 749. Damian Pierce has 772. So they're right next to each other on the list. I did not know that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Let's do another fun thought exercise. I just pulled up a lineup because the internet started working good again. So Donnie, why don't you tell me your favorite player in this lineup for the rest of the season? Like, who do you really think is like the best player in this lineup? Because I just want a career point.
I'm gonna go with Saquon.
So Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Interesting. Go. What about you? If there was a guy you had to play every week in this lineup for the remainder of the year, who would you stake it
on? That's rough.
I promise you I have a point.
I'm looking at Adams. I'm looking at Adams. But like every week, it's probably going to be Pollard because I doubt Pollard gets the value boost where he'll ever be super expensive.
Right. Okay.
But
so
Adams now with everything in Vegas, like he should just be that most weeks now.
Agreed. Yeah, my computer just does not like.
Is this the number one lineup?
I go to any other website in this. This is the number one lineup.
It had a 1.9. Wow.
That was just in this contest.
Yeah, well, yeah, but interesting. 1.9 in there.
Yeah, it was just in this contest. I figured out the problem, by the way, guys. It's not the internet, so don't worry. This won't be a long-term issue. I just got to clean up the computer. There's some memory issues. So anytime there's a lot of graphics on the screen, that's what they were having trouble fixing. So we'll have that fixed for next week. My internet's still good. Don't worry. We'll be back with you guys on Saturday. For Saturday or Friday, at some point in the week. Saturday does seem advantageous for lineup builds, and so that's why we've been holding off. So I guess that's a little bit of a programming note and an update here. But if we did the same exercise, Donnie, and I asked you who you would want out of this lineup for the rest of the season, who would you go with?
Jefferson.
What about you, Go?
Jefferson.
Okay. Now, what's funny about that is Jefferson and Adams were like $100 to $200 different this week. And the only reason I bring that up is to say, like, sometimes you can have the right idea about a play and it just doesn't work out. Like, I won $1.50, he won $1,000. you got to correlate, and things got to happen the right way. This guy obviously wishes he maybe didn't get 1.9 out of Edmonds, right? But Edmonds might have allowed him to get to Jefferson. It might have allowed him to get to Lamb, who, smashed everywhere else. But that doesn't make Edmonds a good play. So, but it doesn't make him a bad play either, because it fit in this lineup where he won $1,000. So I guess that'd be my point. It's like, don't always look at things as like the short term. Look at them as the long term and the short term, and try to find the median between the two. I guess be like, what do we expect? That's why I always look at targets, for example. Targets will always be my kryptonite when I go to kind of make tiebreakers in fantasy. It's like, because I can't guarantee that TJ Hawkinson is going to score 42 fantasy points like he did in week 2. Josh Jacobs scores almost 40 in week 4, and then is kind of back to, a more realistic earthbound projection as we got later in the year. That doesn't mean he's a terrible play. He's still the same guy. It's sometimes just an opportunity cost. Any other takeaways you want to give to the people?
Pretty much it for me.
We are past the halfway point. We're coming into the holiday weeks. This is going to be the real grind, because this is where DraftKings starts ratcheting up prices. Like we're probably going to start seeing like that top lineup where, to try to fit in the right pieces that are going to go off, you might need that super cheap value, whether that's a low 4K running back or a 3,200 like min price wide receiver. And you might be okay only getting the 3 or 4 points from them if it helps you fit in everything, because everything's going to get ratcheted tighter from this point on. So I don't hate the play of going with as minimum salary of a running back as you think is viable, because running back running back does not have as high of a ceiling at that position than wide receiver. So I would much rather have the 4K running back than the 4K wide receiver, because the 4K running back still has a shot at 15 to 20, and the best running back on the slate, barring an absolute monster game from like Mixon, is usually like what happened this week. We had like 6 guys who all got to like 27. That's usually what happens at running back. So if I can get a dude who gets 15 and save $1,000 to $2,000 off of those guys who got 26, spend that at wide receiver and get a 40-point wide receiver, which Adams, Jefferson, Tyreek didn't this week, but he always has the capability of. Jamar Chase will come back. That has always been a great way to build, and that might be something we need to look at more going forward, is finding the most viable punt play, probably at running back, so that we can fit in our high-price wide receivers. Because that's usually how they ratchet up the pricing going forward. From my memories of late in the season.
I just want to chime in on those comments. For people who gave up on Jonathan Taylor in a season-long fantasy this early, that is crazy to me. He was probably your first-round pick for that team anyway. And they're just giving it away for Cordell Patterson and George Pickens. Ugh.
See, now last year I had Derrick Henry in a best ball, so I couldn't trade him if I wanted to. But he was like one of my first, picks, and was doing fantastic. And then he had the injury, and he kind of had a point, like a down point, right? But even because I don't play a lot of season long in terms of trades, that I did this year, but so it's the only thing I can relate to. But when you have a high pick and you invest in him, it's kind of to Donnie's point. You got to follow it through the whole way through, especially when you have that kind of when you have that much invested in it. Gov just mentioned it with his last comment. It's like sometimes you got to know the return on investment, and if you believed in Jonathan Taylor that much to take him in the first round, you kind of got to ride it out. And I think anyone who kind of has that knee-jerk reaction, it's just bad. Like, I remember last year, to bring up that Derrick Henry example, we didn't know if he was going to play or not. But I'm like, he got me. He was the horse that rode my team all the way here, the potential playoffs. And so in that basketball league, it's like, yeah, I hope he comes back and plays. If he doesn't, it's just bad luck. But to give up on the talent. And Donnie, what's funny about that is, in DraftKings, I really wanted to play him. So we did. We compromised. But you didn't even love him this week. But, I mean, even you could see the talent long term in Jonathan Taylor. So it's like, I don't know. We can't always have these knee-jerk reactions.
All right.
Speaking of having the right reaction, I'm going to give you the last reaction, Donnie, before we wrap up the show.
Well, I actually wanted to give a little precursor into next week and then say to head out. Because next week has an interesting dynamic to it, wide receiver-wise. There is going to be no Tyreek, no Waddle, no Evans, no Godwin, no DK, no Lockett, no Christian Kirk, no Cooper Kupp, no Jamar Chase, no Mike Williams, no Juju, no Jerry Jeudy, and no Keenan Allen probably.
Play Nico Collins and play Ben Sharana.
Yeah, we'll need to because we need to fit in Jefferson and Adams again.
This is an interesting week at wide receiver coming up.
Yeah, I will tell you, Nico Collins has been
all I need to know is how much is CMC to see if I'm going to play him.
I have no idea how much. I don't even think he's on the main slate, is he?
I don't even know. I haven't looked at the slate yet.
I don't believe.
I just saw
that would mean no.
I just saw NBA
well.
news that I have to deal with as soon as we get off because now with Zion out, that changes the Pelicans a little bit.
Yeah, I got to do the same thing here relatively soon. But yeah, it is a good point, and I do believe the 49ers do play one of the island games this week, so I do think they're off the slate.
One more question, and I think we can head out.
Okay. I'm gonna let you read this and answer it, and then we'll give a quick answer and get out of here, Donnie.
Guys, I have Keenan Allen. Should I trade him away? I'm just certain he's going to be a target hog when he comes back. I agree he's going to be a target hog in a sense.
I just don't trust him at this point now.
Yeah.
If you can get something for him that's worth it, I would trade him.
If
that being said, when he comes back, he has the capability of being a top 15 wide receiver. So you need to get like a top 20 guy in return.
I don't think you can trade him at this point. I'm going to be honest. It would depend on his settings.
I don't think his value is going to be there.
The problem is, trading him now is someone's going to give you like George Pickens or something. Like you're not going to get a top level target.
Honestly, I think George Pickens would be a decent return considering I think that is his value right now.
I think that's the best value you could hope for.
That's what I'm saying. That's probably the best thing he could get would be like a George Pickens. He'll probably get something worse than that, but like I would want something better than that for Keenan Allen.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're just taking a guy like Keenan Allen and you're betting on another guy who may have underprojected, like a DeAndre Johnson from the Steelers as well, or like a Christian Kirk who came on, with his hair on fire the first couple of weeks. So like at that point, you might as well just keep the guy that rode you there, unless you're just so unhappy with the production. Speaking of production, I think this has been a long enough show with some weirdness. Again, it was a memory issue, not my internet, so this shouldn't be a long-term issue. We'll be back and firing probably at either Friday or Saturday, depending on whichever we find most advantageous for the lineup builds, because we want to give you the best lineup possible each and every week. So join us this upcoming weekend, whether it be Friday night or Saturday. We'll see you guys then. Take care, guys. Be safe.
Have a good one, everyone. Thanks for the comments.
Love hearing from everyone.
Yeah, it was great.